so we can get started.
All right, good morning, good morning. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Gail, as always, for helping out with these amazing virtual chats. And thank you to all of you that are joining us this morning. As Emily said, this will be our last Tuesday member virtual chat, and we are suspending the Saturday. We're going to move all those to Wednesday. Because exciting news, as you probably know by now, we are opening the gates tomorrow. Wednesday will be our first day. We are doing Wednesday and Thursday only for members, and then Friday will be general public. And some of you guys maybe have already gotten tickets, and some of you may be trying to get them now. We're getting on our website. The website is the best place to go to do that. I will let you know that for the first, we looked at it maybe 6 days, we are sold out at capacity. So due to the current circumstances, we've had to limit the amount of people coming into the zoo every day to 450 people. That's within our health guidelines that have allowed us to open the zoo up. So once we do hit that number, unfortunately, we have to close down the registration. And the registration is free if you are a member, but you still need to register. So don't just show up at the zoo. That's not gonna work out. You do need a registration, and that's so that we can keep an eye on how many guests we're allowing into the zoo. So we're hoping that all you guys have tickets or are getting tickets, and within the first couple weeks are able to come in to see your fabulous animals. But I want to thank you guys for sticking with us through this, and hopefully our member virtual chats have allowed you to stay connected to all of our animals here since we have been closed for over 5 months. We are excited to open and see where we continue to grow from here and to get everyone back into the zoo to see some of their favorite animals. But today we traveled to Central and Southern America to check in with our Baird's tapir. The Baird's tapir is the largest terrestrial animal in Central and South America. There are 4 different species of tapirs. There are 3 that live in Central and South America, and 1 that lives in Asia, so Malaysia, which is the Malayan tapir. So we have our mountain tapir, our Brazilian tapir, and the Baird's tapir. That's the species we have here at our zoo. And the Baird's tapir can reach upwards of 600 pounds. So it's a very large, again, terrestrial animal. And a lot of people, when they first see the tapir, they say, well, what is that? What is that animal? What is it related to? They try to figure out what it might look like. And some people claim that it's the hodgepodge of all the animals, that everything's just kind of put together, because it looks like it's got the snout of an elephant and the body of a pig and the feet of a hippo. It's a very unique species and one that unfortunately is endangered. So here at Reid Park Zoo, we have 2. We have a boy whose name is Tupi, and we have a girl whose name is Contessa. So Contessa and Tupi. And they have come from other zoos, and they've come here for breeding recommendations through the SSP, which we've talked about before in these, so the Species Survival Plan. That's the recommendation that AZA zoos are given for a breeding program. So we do have a breeding program here at our zoo with the Baird's tapir. As I said, it is an endangered species, so one that's very important for zoos to be involved in that breeding program. Since Tupi and Contessa have been here, we have had 2 offspring. So we have had Ebo and we've had Tolliver. So Ebo and Tolliver have grown up and they've gone to zoos all over the world. We had Tolliver that went to the Pueblo Zoo in Puebla, Mexico. And then we had Ebo who went to the Milwaukee Zoo. So, and they are both in breeding programs there. So I think we're just about time for our tapir to come out. I don't see her quite out here yet. So I think she is planning on coming out. Hang on, our keepers were just in the habitat enriching the yard. So I'm gonna turn our camera around so we can see, hopefully, Contessa coming out. Now, tapirs are solitary animals. So they do only typically hang out by themselves. So this is Contessa. This is our female. And Contessa is 18 years old, and she's weighing approximately 600 pounds. So she's weighing about 600 pounds. And then Tupi, our male, is 14 years old, and he's weighing about 480 pounds. Now, it is typical for the females to be larger than the males, and that's across all four species of tapirs. And now that we get a good look at it, you guys know what I was talking about, where people look at this species and say, what is it and what is it related to? Now, these guys are herbivores, which means they're only eating fruits and vegetables, vegetation, and they have dentition that's designed to be able to digest and chew up all of that foliage and roughage. And but they also have pretty big teeth that they can use to defend themselves. Now, if we look at this animal, you again see it's a very large-bodied animal, but it's also well adapted for water. So even though it's a large-bodied animal, it's still well adapted for the aquatic life. And we can tell that because if you look at the top of the head, we can see the eyes, the ears, and the nose are kind of all in a line. And Tessa's coming up here, and I'm hoping that we're going to get a good shot at her feet, because the feet tell us who she's related to. Now, if we look at the front feet, we have 4 toes. There's 3 big toes and 1 little toe on the side, but the back feet only have 3 toes. That tells us who she's related to. She is in the Perseodactyl family order, and the Perseodactyl family group is made up of the tapir, the rhinoceros, and the horse. So the tapir, the rhino, and the horse are all in the Perseodactyl family. And what that means is they are the odd number toed ungulates. So horses have 1 toe, their hoof, and tapirs and rhinos have 3. And that's as opposed to our artiodactyls. The artiodactyls are our even-toed ungulates. So that's going to be your deer, your antelope, your camel, your llama, your alpaca. All those species are in the artiodactyl family, and they are more closely related to each other. So it's hard to believe that this animal is related to a horse and a rhino, but that is the truth of it. The genetics of those animals are very similar. And this animal has been around on our planet for a very, very long time. And our fossil records show that it has very little changes in its evolution, in its morphology, in its adaptation from fossil records that we see tens of millions of years ago. So it's a very ancient species. And again, unfortunately, it's one that is endangered. So Reid Park Zoo is proud to be a part of that SSP, which is that breeding program we talked about, where we have had 2 offspring. Now, Contessa and Tupi are recommended for another offspring. Right now, we're letting them spend some time alone, and then we will monitor them and put them together in hope for breeding. Clearly, they already know what they are doing since they produced 2 offspring, but we're hoping that we can see another little calf in the future. Gestation period for tapirs is 13 months, and they will typically only have 1 offspring. It's called a calf, and that calf can weigh anywhere between about 11 and 20 to 25 pounds. So anywhere in that range is a good sized calf. And what's unique about those calves is that they look like little watermelons. And the little watermelons, they have stripes on them. They don't look like the adults really at all in their coloration. And those watermelon patterns give them that dapple look as they are hiding in the rainforest. So shade is very important. These guys, again, are from the rainforest, and the rainforest has a lot of shade, has a lot of areas where they can cool down, which is why this area is so shaded. It might be hard to see this on camera, but we have a lot of trees, we have a lot of vegetation in this space, and that is keeping a lot of shade on our tapirs. The other thing that keeps them thermoregulated is, of course, going in the water. These guys do know how to swim. They spend a lot of time in warm parts of the day in the water, submerging themselves. It's a great way for them to stay cool, but it's also a great way for them to avoid predation. And these guys could be prey to our large predator, which would be the jaguar. And the jaguar weighs a fraction of the size of the tapir, but remember when we were seeing our jaguar that they are a formidable predator and very well adapted to taking down prey the size of a tapir. Jaguars are typically around 200 pounds, and so you're taking down an animal that's twice, even 3 times the weight of what you are, which is an impressive thing. So tapirs do have to worry about jaguars. It's probably the only large predator there. They may come into contact with a mountain lion that may want to take them down. But the juveniles are very susceptible to predation. And so that's why they want to hide in that dapple forest. That watermelon coloration, the stripes and the spots on them allows them to hide in the dappled ground and not with the parents. And so the mom, if there's a predator around, they will go and run off, hopefully luring that predator away. And the job of the calf, the baby, is to stay still and stay hidden. They start to lose those stripes somewhere around 6 months. And as they get older and older, those stripes fade more and more, and then they will get their adult coat and their adult coloration. We talked about that these are endangered species, and Reid Park Zoo is proud to be working with conservation work projects in Brazil, in South America, in Central America that are protecting the Baird's tapir. So we are working with a conservationist whose name is Chris Jordan, and Chris is part of the Baird's Tapir Survival Alliance. That conservation project is working to protect, again, the largest terrestrial species in those continents. And it's an extremely important animal for the biodiversity of the rainforest. Now, we talk about biodiversity. So what is that? Well, biodiversity is just having a multitude of different animals, species of plants, that are that share the same habitat. That creates biodiversity, and those ecosystems rely on that biodiversity for their health. And if we start interrupting that, then we can see a link in that chain start to fail. Too many links in that chain fail, and we see an entire ecosystem that can collapse. Well, again, this is a large herbivore. So what do herbivores eat? Well, they are going to eat plants, they're going to eat fruits, they're going to eat things that have seeds in them. And then as they digest the food, they're going to defecate or poop out all those seeds. So what happens then? Well, guess what? They regrow the forest. Those seeds are left in fertilizer, the tapir poop, and they germinate in there and they grow new vegetation, new plants, which then replenish that forest. And that's what makes these animals such an important species. We call them an umbrella species for their habitat, because really, if we can protect that species, which is the tapir, that's the umbrella that covers all the other species underneath them. So what Chris is doing is first going out and figuring out, well, why are these species endangered? What's going on with them? Why are we losing their numbers? Because in the last 30 years, we have lost 50% of the Baird's tapir population. So 3 decades, we've lost 50% of the Baird's tapir. Yeah, wow, that's exactly right. Someone just posted, wow, and it's an astonishing number. There's only estimated to be about 3,500 of these animals left in the wild. That's a really low number when you look at it's a solitary species. They roam over huge distances. They have a 13-month gestation period. The calf will stay with mom for at least 2 years. So the turnaround time to increase their numbers is really low at the rate of what we are losing them. So why are we losing them? Well, that's something that Chris had to find out right off the bat. We had to figure out, well, what are the threats? What are the threats to this animal, and then how can we help to protect it? One of the biggest threats to these animals is illegal cattle grazing. And if we're running large herds of cattle, that means that we need large areas for those cattle to be able to feed. And so they will clear cut forests to run large herds of cattle. Now, this is illegal cattle, but the laws in these countries can be very challenging to overcome to prosecute any of these farmers that don't have proper permits to be able to raise those cattle. And so not only does that destroy the land, but then these tapirs are competition for the food source of their livestock. And so they will go and they will kill the tapir. And we also have farmers that are going out retaliatory in retaliatory measures to kill tapirs because they have crop raided their crops. So this is a 500-600 pound animal that's going to go out and if you've got corn, if you've got whatever your fruits and vegetables are that you are raising to feed your family or to potentially generate extra revenue, if this animal comes out and starts destroying that, you of course are going to be upset. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to go and kill it. And so crop raiding is another problem. Illegal hunting, so hunting for their meat, is one of the issues. That's not really as big as the other ones. And then, of course, there is new road development that's going in, and these animals are being killed by cars. So they're becoming roadkill. And so Chris has gone out and has identified these issues. And now that we know what the issues are, okay, well, what do we do about it? How can we solve this problem where we all work together? Well, that's a bigger problem. That's a bigger challenge because it's very challenging solving all those problems. The first thing is awareness. We have to know about it. We have to know about that there's a tapir in the area. We have to know about what the importance of a tapir is and why is it important to protect that animal. From there, once we create passion with a species, now we can drive people to conserve it. And so we can do that by putting photo traps out, which Chris has done to identify the areas that the tapir is using. And then we can protect that area. We can work with farmers that have tapirs potentially raiding their crops. We can work with legislation to make it harder for the illegal cattle grazing to be able to operate, and for the government to go and shut down those areas. But again, there's a lot of money that's involved on the other side of destroying the land. And so where can we play? What part do we play? Because we live here in Tucson. So how do we fit in this problem, and how can we be part of the solution? Well, again, like I say every single time, you guys are doing it right now. You're doing it right now because you are a member here at an accredited zoo in your hometown. So by supporting your zoo, you're supporting the conservation work that we do all over the world. So you guys are supporting Chris Jordan in Central and South America that's protecting the tapir. So you guys have a direct impact on this species. The other thing that we can do is we can become a smart consumer. And we can become a smart consumer a couple ways. One, we want to ask questions. Where did our food come from? How did it get here? And is it sustainable? One of the big problems we talked about was the cattle grazing. The other big problem is palm oil. And so the rainforest is being cut down where palm oil plantations are going up. That destroys the rainforest. And palm oil is in so many things, and it's really unnecessary. But it's snuck into a lot of our everyday products. So you guys can be smart consumers. I always talk about an app from Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. It is a wonderful app, and it's called the Palm Oil app. And you can download that, whether or not you have an Apple or an Android, whatever it is. You can download the Palm Oil app, and then you can scan. Yes, I know we're still scanning barcodes. You can scan a barcode that will tell you if that item is sustainable or not. And it's a really easy way that, one, we put our money where our mouth is, because when we start rewarding the companies that are doing good things, those that have sustainable practices, then those are the ones that are going to be getting the funds, and the other companies are either going to go out of business or they're going to learn really quickly that we need to jump on board and start being sustainable. And so that Palm Oil app is a great tool. I'm going to flip our camera back around so you can see my phone here. This is the Cheyenne Mountain Palm Oil app. And again, very easy. It's free to download. And I use it all the time when we are getting items at the store, when I'm getting items for the zoo. During our Boo at the Zoo event, we get somewhere around 300,000 pieces of candy that we give out. All of that candy I want to make sure is sustainable and coming from a sustainable source and does not have palm oil. So I go and I scan all of those bags to ensure that what we are bringing in, that we put our money where our mouth is. You know, we talk about, you know, what we can do. We want to make sure we're doing it here at the zoo, and you guys can do it at home. That's what's great about it, is we can all be a part of the solution. One of the other great things that we're doing with Chris is, since we have had babies here, we've had 2 offspring from Tupi and Tessa. I talked about Ebo and Tolliver. Those are 2 tapirs that have gone off to other zoos. They've grown up and they've gone off to other zoos. And one of the things that we have been doing is taking pictures when we do have those babies, because we obviously know when they're born, so we know how old they are, so we can document as they age what they look like. Since the juveniles, the babies, the calves, they look so much different than our adults, in the wild, when they get a camera trap picture, they don't really know how old or approximate age those animals are. So this is a great way where zoos play a vital role in research. And Adam Ramsey, one of our area supervisors, he is on the steering committee for the TAG. The TAG is the organization in AZA that it oversees each species. And with doing that, he's working with every zoo, every AZA zoo, accredited zoo in the United States that has babies, even outside of the United States. And when they have a calf, to document specific milestones and ages of those calves. Then we can compile all that information and we can give that to the researchers, and they can line up, if they have a camera trap of a 6-month-old, they can line up what a 6-month-old looks like, and that's how they know the age, how many are in that area, potential individuals that are breeding, and potential areas that may have more calves, and then focus again on those. So another way that, you know, zoos are playing a vital role in the research. But the biggest way the zoos play a role with these species is awareness. We have 500,000 people that come through our gates every year. There's over 200 million visitors that go to AZA zoos in the United States every year. And that's a huge number where we bring people in to teach people about the animals, teach people why they're important. We get you up close to the animal so that you can see them, you can smell them. And by doing that, that's where we can create that passion. And if we can create that passion for the animal, that directly translates into conservation. And that conservation saves species. I mean, we've seen it happen. We've seen endangered species on the brink of extinction come in with proper conservation efforts. Those species now are doing well and numbers are recovering. We have example after example of that. And we also have example of species that we didn't and weren't able to focus enough efforts on and have gone extinct. You know, look at the northern white rhino, that there's only 2 individuals left. I mean, that species is a species that will go extinct. But the southern white rhino, we've got decent conservation going on and decent awareness, and those numbers are actually coming back. So it's something that we do need to be aware of. And again, as such a keystone species in the rainforest that they live in, as a seed dispersal, it's so important to be able to protect this animal, because those side effects that happen, we don't typically see those side effects sometimes for decades when we lose a species. And then all of a sudden, we see the ecology of that habitat start to change, and we start to do some research on why. And a lot of times that's due to the removal of a specific species. And so we know how critical tapirs are. We have that information, and it would be foolish of us not to use that and be able to benefit this animal. So I'm proud that Reid Park Zoo is a conservation partner for the Baird's tapir, on the steering committee, doing research, doing in situ work. So that's in the zoo, and ex situ work that's out in the wild. Sorry, I got a plane flying over right now. And I'm so glad that we have this species here for all of you guys to learn and to be able to see. So with that, I might turn it over. I did see some questions coming in. Emily, do we have any questions that are out there?
Yeah. Can you tell us more about their snout / trunk nose? How do they use it? Is it anything like an elephant trunk?
Yes, and Tessa's now laying down back there, but you can definitely see that snout that's there, and they will use it. It is a prehensile snout, and it's a formation of their upper lip. So it's different than the elephant that their trunk is their nose and not part of their upper lip, but it's an adaptation extension of the upper lip that has the nose on it. They have a great sense of smell. They've got fairly poor eyesight and hearing, but a great sense of smell. And they are able to use that upper lip to curl around and kind of rip trees down or leaves off of trees and to be able to pick up food off the ground. And then they also will use it as a snorkel. So as they are underwater, they can stick that snorkel up and just their eyes, their ears, and their nose are above water. So to a potential predator passing by, they don't even see them because they're so hidden. This large 600-pound mammal is completely hidden by the water, and they're able to just stick their nose up. So it works as a great snorkel, and it kind of looks a little goofy on them, but they use it to the best of their advantage.
And how many, do you happen to know how many AZA zoos have Baird's tapirs or tapirs of any species?
Good question. I know we have the records of that. I do not have that number offhand, so I don't know exactly how many zoos have Baird's tapirs. It's something I can ask Adam because, again, on the steering committee, he is in touch with all of those institutions, and especially all those institutions that are breeding tapirs, so that we can do that research on those calves, on those offspring. So I don't have that off the top of my hand, but we can definitely get that for you guys.
So a lot of our animals are fed certain kinds of chow, like, primate chow, something like that. Is there a tapir chow? Do they get some kind of special biscuit?
There is, and it's kind of an herbivore pellet that we can feed to any of our herbivores. So it is designed for, the diets and the nutritional value of those species, but we also feed a lot of produce. So you can see some of the produce that's down here. They've got some sweet potato, there's some apples, they'll get some cucumbers, some zucchini, and there's a head of lettuce that's in the pool here. And then we also will feed out that browse. And browse is any sort of edible foliage that we have around the zoo. We've got some bamboo, they've got, they'll eat mulberry, they'll eat a lot of different types of trees, the sumac, and then we have some alfalfa hay. So they get a variety of a diet throughout the day. These guys are kind of grazers, browsers, if you will. So they do kind of pull leaves and stuff down off the ground or off shrubs and stuff. So they always will have access to food. And this is pretty typical. So Contessa came out and she foraged around for a little bit and saw some food. And now she's going to take a little bit of a rest. One of the things that she's actually backed by a training wall. And so that area back there is a spot that we encourage her to come to because we will do training in that space. Now, it is an herbivore, but it is a very powerful animal at 600 pounds. And again, they have the adaptations to be able to avoid predation from a jaguar. So it is a species that we do maintain a protective barrier, just like with all of our powerful animals. So we have protective contact and we do positive reinforcement training. And so you can see maybe that piece of wood that's right there, that's a little gap in the chain, the fence that's there. And that gives us a little bit bigger of a space to put our hand through. Now, what we'll do, tapirs have this unique reaction that if you start to scratch them, they lay down. It's really great. So if you start to scratch them right on their back and their hind end, they just lay down and they love scratches. So they'll come over for scratch downs. And that allows us to get a good assessment of the animal. It allows us to, get a good check over. If we needed to give a vaccine, we could do that. These guys are trained to do voluntary blood draws, voluntary vaccines. They do target. And remember, if you've been with us on a couple other ones, you've seen targeting where we ask the animal to go from one side to another following a target, which could be an extension of our arm, like a tennis ball on a PVC pipe. And again, the Contessa is trained for voluntary ultrasounds. So when we believe that she's pregnant, then she is trained to be able to stand and we can get in a good ultrasound. And Dr. Roth, our chief veterinarian, has been able to get some great results of a fetus growing over that 13-month gestation period to determine proper size of growth and good heart rate. And so we've been in research for all of our 2 pregnancies that we've had with Contessa because she's trained to do a voluntary ultrasound. So training is extremely important for all of our animals that they participate in their own well-being and their own health. What's a lifespan? So the lifespan of a tapir is estimated to be somewhere around 25 to 30 years. Of course, that's a median life expectancy. We look at median life expectancy because it's more accurate than an average life expectancy. And what that means is that the majority of tapirs will end up within that 25 to 30 years. Some may live longer, some may not live as long. It's just like any species out there. And right now, Contessa and Tupi are doing really well. And again, Contessa is 18 years old and Tupi is 14 years old. So they become sexually mature at about 4 to 5 years. So about 4 to 5 years old is when they become sexually mature. And that's why at about 2 years old, they will start to move away from mom and they will go into their own space. They are solitary, so they do only come together for breeding. But about 4 to 5 years old is when they would reach sexual maturity. I've just seen a couple questions coming through. That's why I'm answering some of those. Emily, do we have any more? I haven't been able to see all of them.
So they're, I believe you said sexually mature at around 4 to 5 years?
Yes, that's correct.
What age is considered too old for breeding?
We don't have research on that. So at this point, again, Tessa and Tupi have a breeding recommendation. And so we will continue to put them together when, when all the settings are right. And we don't have really research on how old, can they, still have successful offspring. So again, one of those things that we are able to research in our AZA zoos that tremendously help out the wild population. And focus, again, if we start seeing a lot of, juvenile tapirs hanging out in a specific area, that would alert us to focus conservation efforts there, because that's the next generation that's going to be able to keep the species going. So a lot of research is done with all these animals, and the Baird's tapir is a special one for us here at the Reid Park Zoo, not only participating in that SSP, but also with conservationist Chris Jordan, and then with Adam, our animal manager, who is on the steering committee for the tapir. So a lot of stuff that we're very proud of here at Reid Park Zoo, and all you guys should be proud of too, because you guys are directly a part of all of that success that we have with our Baird's tapir. So, again, there is a direct link from you guys to our animals here. And if we don't have you guys, well, guess what? Then we don't have all these great things that we can do, and we can't contribute to all the amazing work. So, all of our donors, all of our members, all of our guests that come into the zoo, all you guys that have rode the carousel, fed a giraffe, donated, gone to an event, hosted an event here at the zoo. You guys are supporting, gone to an education program. You guys are supporting what we're doing, and part of all of that revenue goes to support what we do globally for our wild animals. So thanks. So good job, guys.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for all of your support. We do have some more questions, Jed.
Sure.
You said that they like a good scratch down. What does their fur feel like?
It's kind of soft. Yeah, I mean, they don't have thick hair. Remember, they don't really need to, they stay in a very temperate climate. So it doesn't get too hot, too cold. So they don't have to have a lot of fur. They do have rough, hide. So they have thick skin, and their fur is kind of soft. So, not like a puppy dog soft, but it's kind of like a horse, I would say. It feels similar to some of the horses. I mean, obviously there's different breeds of horses out there that have very different types of hair, but I would say your general quarter horse or thoroughbred, something like that, would be a good representation of what their fur feels like.
Are they known for any kinds of vocalizations?
Yeah, they do have some different vocalizations. They have kind of like a, and Rebecca just walked up here. She's my animal supervisor. She's been around the tapirs a lot. So what do you think, Becca? What's kind of their vocalizations?
They have a lot of whistles. They have a lot of whistles that they use to communicate with each other. Also some clicking noises. They will also make some huffing sounds occasionally, but whistles is the most typical.
Yeah, so they do have some very unique vocalizations that you kind of hear throughout the zoo. And you're like, what is that animal? And you come over and it's the tapir making some clicks and whistles and stuff.
So are the Baird's tapirs named after somebody named Baird?
Yes, I believe it is the scientist that first recognized this species. I don't remember what the first name of the gentleman was, but yes, they are named after the scientists that first recognized, identified that it was a different species. And we said there's 4 species. There's debate right now if there is a 5th species. It has not been recognized by the IUCN, which is another organization that recognizes known species and their threats that they have, or by any of our science, our well-known conservationists. So that's why we say kind of 4 species. And yes, they do have a very short little tail. They don't really need a long tail. It just gets caught up in a thick forest. So they've got a little stubby tail.
And can they move pretty fast, or are they usually more slow moving?
They can move, they can run, and these guys run pretty quick. If you've seen them run through the habitats here, these guys get up to about 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour. So, you know, they're not going to outrun a jaguar, but they get going pretty quickly, and that's a lot of weight moving through the forest. So, you know, they can definitely put up a fight on a jaguar. Again, it's a big animal. They can use their hooves. They can use their teeth. If you look at their teeth, they actually have very sharp little incisors that they can bite down, and they can do quite a bit of damage. So again, you know, this is Contessa. Tupi's in the back right now. He's actually in a different habitat. We have 2 habitats. Let me try to spin over here. He was at the fence just a little bit ago. So there's another habitat over on that side where there's an underwater pool. So some of you guys may have seen our tapirs over there. And I was kind of hoping that Contessa might go swimming so you guys could see her go swimming, but she looks like she's just going to enjoy some of the browse that's in the pool.
And then I think we have one last question. Do conservationists relocate breeding eligible tapirs between isolated populations to maintain diversity?
We have done that, not with this species that I know of. I talked to Chris when he was out here. Oh, she's going to go swimming. Awesome. Or just go get that food. Not with this species. Other species, definitely, we have done that with. And relocating species is definitely a way to repopulate a specific area that historically had a species, and then the numbers went down. And so, you know, it's definitely something that we can do, but something that we have not done with this species. And, you know, it's one that's a challenge because until we can protect all those areas that these animals need to have to thrive, there's no point in putting other animals in there. You know, a lot of people say, well, why can't you just breed up a bunch of animals and put them back in the wild? Well, we can't protect the ones in the wild right now. So we have to protect those areas, those animals first, so that they have the habitat they need to be successful. Then we can talk about reintroduction. But until we solve those problems that they face, we're just putting animals in the same area and kind of, you know, putting them to the same threats. So we haven't had that yet with this animal because the habitats that they're in still are not protected. They're very large. They span over several different countries, several different governments, and you know, it can be very challenging in some of those governments to be able to pass proper laws and to enforce those laws for those areas to be protected. So, so I think with that, I just want to thank you guys for spending a little time with us here in our South America loop. with the largest terrestrial animal in Central and South America, a very special species here at our zoo due to the conservation, the research, and the breeding that we have done on the Baird's tapir. Hopefully you guys had fun. Hopefully you guys learned some new stuff. We look forward to seeing you guys back at the zoo. Again, we will be doing these chats. We're going to move them to every Wednesday. So no longer on Tuesday and Saturday. So every Wednesday. So register for that. Next Wednesday, we'll be with the grizzly bears with Ronan and Finley. So I look forward to telling their story, which they have an amazing story, and showing you guys how awesome our grizzly bears are. But for now, I want to thank you guys and appreciate everything that you guys are doing and all the support you've done for the Reid Park Zoo. And as always, I'm Jed Dodds, bringing the zoo to you, and stay wild, Tucson. We'll see you guys later.